Um, so if y'all are ready, we're going to go ahead and get started. Tonight we're talking about social awareness, and this does not mean understanding the health of society. This is about understanding, really being able to learn and appreciate others. Thankfully, Stephanie made some really good notes for me, so we'll kind of feed off these. So while emotional intelligence is all, where self-awareness and self-management is focused on you, social awareness is your ability to focus and understand and read others. So this includes things like understanding body language, facial expression, postures, tone of voice, and what is hidden beneath the surface with deeper thoughts and emotions. How many of you learned growing up listening to your dad or your mom, and you go, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna go to my room and wait till the mood heals." Whether it's body language, looks. My dad didn't have to yell at me; he just had to look at me hard, and that's. I think my mom used to tell me what I said. I can't remember what I said, but it was funny. So in the book, they talk about some strategies. So we're just going to kind of talk about these as a group. Get your microphones. Well, you don't have a microphone, but so greeting people by name. How does it feel when you're greeted by name? If somebody greets you by your name, is it different when they just say hi? Yeah. I've tried to pay attention at restaurants, particularly fast food restaurants, because that's usually when they have the tags, or at Walmart, and to say hi and use their name, because it makes us all feel better. Body language. Watch body language. Anybody have any interesting experiences about body language? Who was that? You do?
Okay, after I go.
Oh, you're going first?
No, you go first.
Oh, okay.
She said after you.
What was I going to say?
Body language.
Oh, body language. So I had to have this conversation with somebody one time, and it was a confrontation, one of them conversations, and I already knew the type of guy this was when you try to bring some type of a protection or critique or anything like that. This dude was like, he got in his feelings, got offended, all that kind of stuff, right? And so, but if I wouldn't have been armed with that knowledge, it might have went totally different. So I went in knowing something could have happened. And so, but I remember talking to the dude, and then at the last second, and like out of the corner of my eye, I seen his body shift, and I seen his hands move, and I was like, and I looked, and I stepped back, like on instinct, I stepped back off of that, just as he was swinging, and it goes, his knuckle grazes my nose.
That's body language.
And so if I would not have like been known what to look for, just a what do you call it, a very aggressive stance that he had.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
If I would not have been paying attention to that, then instead of a graze, that thing might have been crooked. So, but yeah.
Yep. Allie?
Okay, this is funny. And it's about Pastor Nathan, so don't tell him I tell you. But, yeah. So, body language, right? He loves getting massage, and there was this one time we went skiing. We needed a massage for our muscles to recover. And we're in Utah, and we get booked online. And so we got to the place, and I mean, it was like a weird kind of place already. But we were like, okay, waiting on the waiting room. And then all of a sudden, our masseuse masseuses, I don't know, therapists, massage therapist, they enter the room, and they're both guys. And then one of them calls out, Nathan? And Nathan's like, nope. Like, everything about him said no. Like, he had his hands crossed, his legs crossed, and he goes like, nope, nope, nope. And
Not doing it.
yeah, so I was like, I learned really quick that he can communicate through his body language, and he closed off completely. So it's funny. He ended up not having a massage with the guy that calls Nathan. So, yeah.
That's funny. That's true. The CEO of this company, I learned when he gets exasperated, if he has a pen and he tosses it down on the table, you go, okay, John's having a hard time. Or he takes a bottle of water and he sets it down and you go, okay, John's not liking what he's hearing. But you learn to pick up on that. Timing. It says make timing everything. Why? Any comments on that? Why is that a thing? I was going to bring the book up. Because, in comedy, timing's everything. But this is about social awareness, not comedy. I was going to pull this one up. Make timing everything. You don't ask for a raise when business is not going well. You don't try to correct someone who feels threatened by you. And you don't ask for a favor when someone's under a lot of stress or angry. So it's like your mom walks in the door and you want something, or your dad, and they've had a really bad day. And you ask for money, or if you can go somewhere, and sometimes you don't get the answer you want. I learned sometimes it seems like manipulation, but it's effective timing. I mean, you do have to read the room. That's one of these too. True. So, funny story, when this was a long time ago in our marriage, I wanted a pool so bad. And my husband didn't, but the neighbors had one. And I'm like, if we could just spend some time in the neighbor's pool, he's going to want one. And y'all, I'm telling you, it worked like a charm. It worked perfect. I don't think I've ever told him that was my plan, but it did work. And then we moved and didn't have a pool. Develop a back pocket question. Does anybody have a back pocket question? Y'all know what they mean when they say that? No. So a back pocket question is what you use to bail you out of any awkward silence or uncomfortable moment. You might want more than one back pocket question, depending on the situation. I don't have one. I would like one. You grab the mic. You have one?
Normally, I'll use them, but first, normally what I do is I gauge the situation, because normally when I go in a conversation like that, I already know enough information ahead of time when I go into the conversation about what topic we're going to talk about, or if I see they're having a bad day, and I already understand, like, okay. But normally my questions, they're not a change of subject, but maybe a rewording of it to get them to think. Yeah. Normally that's what I do instead of just changing the subject all the way together, because most of the time when people are going through it, they may have body language or something that says, hey, don't talk to me. But most of the time, deep inside, you want somebody to know what you're going through, know how you care, and stuff like that. And so the questions are designed to be like, oh, he does care. And then they open up. But normally, I come in and try to talk. If there's a shutdown or a wall, then I'll have another question just prepared.
Right.
And that's normally how I do it.
This says, this social awareness strategy buys you time so that you can get to know someone better and shows the other person that you are interested in his or her thoughts, feelings, and ideas. Something like, what do you think about X? Pick from a handful of issues that require some explanation, like maybe beyond the weather.
One of the things I used when I was in sales, I'd walk into the purchaser's office or whatever, and usually you look on the walls, and if they see a bunch of pictures with them at baseball parks, then you go, oh, you must be a such and such a fan, and then that triggers, oh yeah, or if they got pictures of kids in their athletics or any events or whatever, then you can try to pick a related topic.
Right.
Yeah. One of my back pocket ones is, I know you spend a lot of time here. What do you do in your free time? What do you like to do?
Yeah.
And that usually spurs a lot
good
of a great conversation with people.
I like that one. This next one. Oh, sorry.
No, I don't. I just had a question. The last two, you said it was timing and back pocket question. What was the first thing you said?
Oh, hang on. Thank you for reminding that. I'll hand these out to you. Yes. Body language. But we have handouts. So while she's handing those out, the next one is don't take notes at meetings. I finally, in this day and age, it's handy to have Zoom calls, and you can go AI note taker, or we sometimes will get on calls at work, and I swear there are 7 note takers on the meeting, because you can configure your note taker to come to a meeting when you aren't there, or to come to every meeting that you're going to. And it's just weird. You get on a Zoom call and you go, wait, Don's note taker's here and Don's not even here. And but I found, no kidding, I found that when I'm not taking notes, I can gather so much more from the meeting. If I'm focused on taking notes, I'm not going to be able to really get the information from the meeting. It's scary, though. Somebody needs to take notes. You a note taker, or you have a question? Yeah.
I don't matter. No, nothing big. No, I think it depends on the environment and type of meeting as well. Because normally type of meetings I have to go to, I have a list / agenda of questions and certain things that I have to go through and get answers to and write down and all that. And majority of the time, it's more so looked at, it's like, say I don't come with a notebook, which I always do. I think it's, like I say, it depends on the environment, because I would appear unprepared for the meeting. And then it would also, chances are, I would forget everything that I had all down, that I had to cover. And then, but of course I take down the responses too. But I think it depends on type of meeting and environment. So just depends. But yeah, but I get where you're coming from, large meeting, things like that. And if you're over here taking notes, head down and all that, and not attentive to the speaker or something like that, so I get where that comes from as well. So
I think too, it depends on your role in the meeting. To your point, if I'm facilitating a meeting, I cannot take notes. I am facilitating discussions, but I try to get somebody to take notes. If I'm just listening, I'll take all kinds of notes. So, and sometimes it's, hold on, let me pause for a minute, let me write that down. But AI is very helpful. Another way to effectively use notes is, if you know you're going to be in an emotional discussion, bring notes with you. If you've thought of things ahead of time, it seems odd, but one time Will crossed a lot of lines, but he had crossed a line, and we had we had discussed on what the ramifications of that would be. And I had to write it down because I knew when we got into the discussion, I would forget, I would be emotional. And he goes, "You brought notes to this?" I said, "You're right, I did." I didn't want to forget it. Yes, sorry, that is my son. So the next one, plan ahead for social gatherings. So picture yourself leaving a dinner party. You can't believe you forgot to bring the bread. You spent at least 10 minutes at the party beating yourself up over it, and another 15 taking ribbing from your breadless yet good-natured friends. I'm trying to read some more of this. You plan to attend this dinner, but did you plan for it? Planning ahead for an event can be your saving grace, whether it's a dinner party or a work meeting. I think this is a little bit like the strategies with self-awareness, just practicing the scenario. It's just thinking ahead and not living off the cuff. For us planners, please plan ahead. Makes everything much more peaceful. Clear away the clutter. Anybody have any thoughts on that? It's not just
So
physical
needed.
clutter. Go ahead.
Well, the physical is so needed. Like, just cleaning. Like, I know still there's a place in my house that needs to be clean. And once that's, like, it's kind of like a blind spot, like in the back. Like, I see it. I don't want to tackle it, but I see it. And I know that once that is done, I'll sleep better. Like, I'll sleep better.
So
Like,
what if
yeah.
So what if that clutter is mental clutter? What if it's not physical clutter? Are there things in your head that are cluttering up and preventing you from maybe paying attention to things around you? She's grabbing the mic.
Like, there's a lot of things, like, with school and work. Like, there will be, like, confrontations or, like, conflicts or, like, just, like... But now I'm trying not to say it. I'm going to say it. But, like, any, like interaction or anything that, like, happens, it bothers me and it gets in my head and it stays in my head, and then I'll try to talk to somebody and I might, like, come off with, like, a tone, or I don't know, just, like, I might come off in a way that's not bueno. So, like, yeah, just things going on in my life that clutter my head, and it like stops me from being the best me, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it takes away from your ability to be present, right?
I was just going to say that this is where worry and anxiety come in, is that I overplay scenarios in my head of, like, how a situation went badly or how a situation is going to go. It's like I'm conjuring up, like, all the scenarios in my head of how a situation can go before it even has begun. And I have to remind myself that I have to take all thoughts captive and make sure that, like, I just stay present, because I can't predict the future.
Right.
No matter what I do, I can't change the circumstances. I can only control my thoughts and my feelings in that moment.
Right. And you may have already predicted what you think somebody's going to say, and you may not fully hear them because you're preparing for something different.
So I do sit in a lot of the meetings, and there's tons of stuff that's just kind of being thrown, and there's a lot of things that I'm responsible for. And so if I don't put it down on paper or put it in the calendar or get it out of my head or move it from one piece of paper over to an electronic device, like, that stresses me out to no end. At the end of the day, I'm like, I know I forgot something. And so if I don't put it down on somewhere to go back to, that keeps me up at night. Or it wakes me up at 2:15 in the morning, which happens a lot. And so learning, what, and we're all different in how that affects us. But I've learned I'm a list person, and I've got to put it down somewhere to where it gets out of my head and on a piece of paper so I can go back to it to not forget it.
Right. Yeah.
But back to what you were saying about, the narratives that run in your head when you've got a situation with other people, that's another one it's like it just takes up space in your psyche, and it's like, Lord, I don't have time to hold on to this. And so
Right.
it's taking it back to the Lord and giving the individuals back to the Lord, because it does take up residency
Right.
in your
In your heart.
heart and in your head. So
Yeah.
go God.
So the next one is live in the moment. How does living in the moment help us with social awareness? It's in the book, if y'all need.
I think this is kind of what I was saying about like thinking about the future and what potentially could happen, but living in the right now and not worrying about what tomorrow is going to hold, but just because if I'm mentally not here at, say, at TLS, and I'm worried about a meeting tomorrow at work,
Yeah,
then I'm not serving anyone, and especially myself,
right.
because I'm not living to the best of my ability here at TLS.
Yeah, this is really about being present for anything. One time I was taking my son's friend. I used to run my son and his friends wherever. I liked the opportunity to have them in my car. Now, they knew if they got in the car with me, it was probably going to be, they called it a lecture. It wasn't, but I was going down the street one day, and we were driving down the road, and I was explaining to my son's friend, who actually is still his best friend, and I was saying, you drive by these things every day, and you don't even know that you're driving by them. And we just had a little being present exercise. I don't know if it made a difference, and he probably got out of the car and went, oh, man, I don't want to ride with her anymore. But I'd do it again if I had the chance. The next one, go on a 15-minute tour. What does that mean?
I'll say something on that.
Okay, go ahead.
I guess it would depend on your environment, how big it is, whether you gauge 15 minutes or 5. But a lot of times whenever you're in like a meeting or whatever, how small or big, or even in ministry moments and stuff like that, the best times to do those is whenever it's your turn to listen. That's normally the best time to do it. Like in any kind of meetings, if someone's talking, that's a good time for you to scope everything out, get the feel of it and stuff like that. Sometimes once you get the hang of it, sometimes it may even take like 1 minute, 2 minutes just to get a feel of it, and then you'll catch on to it real quick on those things. But that's what I've learned.
Right. Well, and the book talks about taking time to just observe, kind of like what we were just talking about, being present. Take some time to observe things you've never noticed before. You know, when I think about, I'll be in the office tomorrow, and I'm thinking about, okay, well, maybe when people get there, however few people will actually be there tomorrow, look at where they're sitting, because I don't really look at it. I see them, but I don't really look at where they're sitting or what they're doing. And so it's just, and that from a ministry perspective, the more you observe and you pick up, like, what does that person have on their desk? What do they have on their desk? It gives you opportunities, I think, to reach out. And it also talks in here about tour your workspace for moods. Other people's moods can provide you with critical hints about how things are going. But you got to be able to spot those moods. I like this next one. Watch the EQ at movies. Art imitates life. And so they talk about actually using movies as practice to identify emotions. It says next time you're watching a movie, I don't know, we finished 1923 this weekend and Landman. Now I don't know what we're going to watch. No, that's not my favorite. My mother loved Survivor. She loved Survivor. Next, practice the art of listening. How many of y'all were in here when we did the active listening exercise? I think you were here. I don't remember if you were. Yeah. Active listening is really learning to completely focus on the other person. Your questions, you're not listening to respond, you're listening to understand. So it's 100% really listening. And it does take practice. It is something you have to practice. So I think for some people it may come naturally, but I think for most of us you have to intentionally practice it. Go people watching. Where are your favorite places to people watch? Airports, the mall. Walmart. Church. Trying to think if there's anywhere else. The roads. You didn't say the roads, did you? Yes. Yeah. Nail salon. Restaurants. It's probably a lot you can tell at a restaurant by watching people. A ton. Couples, families. Yeah. You think so? Next one, they said, understand the rules of the culture game. What do they mean by that? Share. There's the mic. Understanding the rules of the culture game. And it's not just social, not just geographical culture. It says, let's say you start a new job at a company. To be successful, you're going to need to learn how things are done in the company's culture. Can you walk into leadership's office and share things? A church, just watching the culture. Go ahead, Sean.
So you don't go to Israel and ask for bacon. That's no bueno. Or go to India and ask for beef. They're holy cows.
Holy cow. But you can see how understanding somebody else's culture, whether it's geographical or other, makes a huge difference in being able to understand them and relate to them. At my office, and even I work with a lot of software engineers, a lot of Indians in software engineering, and it's the culture's different. A lot of them don't. True, very true. A lot of them don't respect women in leadership. They don't believe that they should be there, and so you just have to prove them wrong. Sorry. No, you're just respectful to them. Test for accuracy. What do they mean by that? What do you think? So thinking from the concept of social awareness, what do they mean by test for accuracy? If you're thinking about listening to someone, do you need to test for accuracy? Like, here's what I heard from you. Is this what you're saying? Did I understand you correctly? So it's that feedback and making sure that you understood what you thought you heard. It says, just ask. Remember, there's no such thing as a silly question. So be curious, respectfully curious. Yeah, it says the best way to test your accuracy is to simply ask if what you're observing in people or situations is actually what's occurring. So check your perceptions with the facts. Next one, step into their shoes. What does that mean? Empathy. Perspective. Don't judge.
I think it also is like, okay, so I'm obviously not a man, so I don't know how men work. So it's like trying to figure out, okay, if I was in his shoes, well, I don't know how to do that. But it's just watching and observing, like, because emotions and feelings I can identify with.
Right.
But I may not be able to identify how a man's mind works. But for me as a woman, I can step into a woman's shoes and, you know, empathize or whatever. But it can be a little bit tricky when it's the opposite sex. But when you just break it all down and look at it from a logical perspective, because men are more logical than women, then you can see the emotional or the thought process behind what they're trying to convey, or whatever the situation they're in, like in their environment at home, environment at work. It still kind of boils down the same.
Right. Try to see them from from their lens, not from your lens. What's the saying is, Brene Brown says it, I think she said it, to really be empathetic, you have to understand, I need to find that quote, how they experienced it, not how you think they experienced it. And I know I'm not saying that right, but it's a really good message. It's basically don't identify with how you would have experienced it. You have to understand how they truly experienced it. Seek the whole picture. What does that mean? I know.
I think it means to look for full understanding about a situation. It's pretty like straightforward. Like knowing what's going on in a situation. You can't just like, this is like a personal thing that happened recently. Like only knowing half of a situation and putting your judgment in that. Like last week, how I said, like the chapter before this, it said, I can't remember, but it said something. And
it did say something, yes.
Yeah. And it was really good. I said it on the microphone last week too, but no. Okay.
Well, and I think it goes back to the discussion we had about truth. You have to seek the whole truth. You can't just look at it at the surface level. Dig deeper and make sure that you see the whole picture and that you understand the whole truth.
I got something.
Yep.
Last week, the two stories about, I can't remember the names, Mary and John, that's what it was. I'm horrible with names. What's his name? Paul. So he had mentioned something about the dude would have acted differently if he would have known what she was going through personally. And that's part of finding the whole picture.
Right.
Is if he would have known if he would have took the time to ask her, hey, what's going on? Are you dealing with something? He would have acted totally different.
Right.
And so you're finding the whole picture is not usually just sitting back and all of a sudden you see the whole picture. Usually you find the whole picture through your questions
Right. You look for the
Yeah.
whole picture.
and through your asking them. So
Yeah. So Rachel found the quote for me. It says, empathy doesn't require that we have the exact same experiences as a person sharing their story with us. Empathy is connecting with the emotion that someone is experiencing, not the event or the circumstances. So it's their emotions, not just the event. Healthy social awareness develops from a rich and growing relationship with the Lord. To be socially aware, you can't be self-centered. You have to seek outward to be socially aware. As our relationship with the Lord improves, we become others-centered as we take on His persona and consider servanthood or sacrifice. We also need to be addressing the pain of our very own hearts. So you've heard the quotes about hurt people, free people, free people. You will see life and others through the lens of your own hurts. And so you have to identify those and clear those out of the way so that you can see people as they are, not as you see them through your pain. Being leaders, being emotionally intelligent and aware of our leadership is key. Leading with a healthy awareness of emotion coupled with love and grace. I mean, that's what the Lord does with us. He loves and He has grace for us. We can only lead others where we have gone. Some of the notes, although the book we're covering is not biblical, we can certainly apply biblical principles to what we do. A portion of social awareness is discernment. So a lot of the things we talked about is discerning emotions and discerning things in others. The average person can see the outside. The Holy Spirit obviously sees on the inside, but the Holy Spirit can also give us a discernment to see and highlight things to us. That's one of the things that they study and work on in TSSM, and it's something that can be sharpened. So it's not you either have discernment or you don't have discernment. You can begin to learn to listen and begin to see and practice that discernment. She had a story she was going to tell, and she said, you pick your, tell your own story, but I don't really have a good story like she did. But have you ever done a workout and the next morning you wake up and you go, oh, I didn't know I had that muscle? Discernment and learning to see these things is just like that. The more you work that muscle, it will improve. So we have an activity. Why don't we take a quick break and we'll give, it's 7, 8. Let's be back at 7:15, so 7 minutes. Technically it's about 7 minutes and 6 minutes and 8 seconds. Yeah, break first and then we'll come back and do the activity.